What's going on, everyone? I'm your host Derek, and welcome to Let's Play Everything, the show where we attempt to play every single game so you don't have to. Today, we are playing 3D WorldRunner, developed by Square. And yes, it is the exact Square that you are thinking of, the half of today's Square Enix. Unfortunately, that does not mean this is a great game. Released in 1987, 3D WorldRunner was praised for its graphics and pseudo-3D forward scrolling. Playing in 2018, this may not be as apparent, but compared to most NES games at the time, 3D WorldRunner starts to look more like a SNES game, which is a compliment, kind of. Back in '87, this game was known for completely ripping off Sega's Space Harrier game. I haven't played that game yet, but I watched some videos of it on YouTube, and all I can say is, wow. Not only did Square completely rip this game off, but they made it much simpler and way less exciting to play. I'm actually looking really forward to playing Space Harrier now, because the game looks fantastic. Doesn't end there though. I noticed WorldRunner seems to have taken ideas from a much more popular game series, Mario. This wasn't mentioned anywhere else, so maybe I'm just in my head, but these are my thoughts. In the progress that I made in the game, there are 4 items. A potion, which basically allows you to get hit an additional time before dying, which is like the mushroom power-up in Mario. A rocket, which gives you the ability to shoot, what are basically fireballs, aka the firepower power-up. Some sort of temporary invincibility item that kills enemies you run into. Sound familiar? Then lastly, there's an actual mushroom that instantly kills you. Most of you may not be familiar with this in Mario since it was the unreleased levels, but this is very similar to the poison mushrooms in the Japanese release of Super Mario Bros. 2. The only interesting part about 3D WorldRunner is that you can toggle a 3D mode if you own a pair of those old blue and red tinted 3D glasses. I didn't realize this until afterwards when I did some reading on it and was very confused when I hit select on the controller and the game's color shifted into what I now realize was 3D mode, but it just looked like some horror mode that was terrifying. History aside, let's get to the gameplay. The game constantly scrolls forward as you maneuver left and right to dodge enemies, kind of like Frogger, while jumping over any gaps that appear. You can control the speed by pushing forward or back on the D-pad most of the time, but occasionally there are some stretches where the game locks your speed at maximum. I guess this is to provide some extra difficulty. It took me several playthroughs to realize that you unlock the power-ups by running into the green pillars that are scattered throughout the stages. It seemed natural to avoid these since this is a running game where you avoid everything else. Once you unlock the rockets, the strategy changes a little, and instead of dodging the enemies, you can pretty much just shoot straight in front of you constantly and not worry about them as much. If you go check out the weapons in Sega's game, they are much more exciting to look at. In level 2, there are a couple of pickups that you can start trying to grab as you run through. The stars, which give you some points and have a small counter in the corner, though it's unclear if the counter means much since I never was able to collect a large amount and it resets every time you die. And some balloons. These balloons float you to a bonus level that contains a bunch of stars and a bonus life at the end if you run into the green pillar. This can be exploited a bit as level 2 actually has 2 of these bonus levels. So if you go through both, get an extra life in each one of them, and then die right after the second one, you can continue to collect as many lives you want since you're +1, what you originally started with. This is definitely the way to go if you want to actually play this abomination of a game, as there's no continue when you run out of lives, even if you make it to stage 2-1. So you really need as many lives as you can because it's pretty easy to die in this game, especially as you go through a new level and you don't know the layout. Overall, this game was pretty horrific. It's really the same level over and over, with just the platforms changing a bit, so sometimes you have to do small jumps so you can do a big jump immediately afterwards or just one giant jump. The end boss for the first set of stages was a joke. For some reason, during the boss fight you can fly all around the screen, which is what you can do in Space Harrier all the time. It didn't really make sense that I can only do this during the boss and not normal gameplay, but I guess Square was trying to differentiate the game somehow. 3 hits takes down the quote-unquote dragon, if you could call it that. The game cover art sure thinks so anyway, but it looks like just a centipede or something without, I don't know, it's weird. Stage 2-1 puts you into a more spacey type environment, but it's still the same boring crap. After I ran out of lives here, I just stopped playing. I was done. The LPE rating system is primarily based on is it worth your time to play today? And 3D WorldRunner gets 0 out of 7 in this regard. This game was not fun. The controls were quite sporadic. The game was repetitive, and it completely ripped off Space Harrier from Sega, which looks like a much better game. So you can definitely skip on this one. Don't buy it. It's not worth the $10 or whatever it's going for on eBay. If you enjoyed this episode and want to see more NES games, hit that like button, get subscribed, hit the bell even if you really like me, and I'll see you in the next one.